I hate my parents. I mean, I at least hated my parents until now because they forced me into engineering, which I was never interested to do. I know it happens with almost 80% of us. But trust me, only this corona season I realized they are actually saints because I thought they have forced me, but actually they didn't force me as much
After
as.
failing for 6 times, I got a job offer from.
Right. Why don't you take up a course in data science? Suddenly, it's like all these online educational portals have realized the importance of why everybody has to learn data science. No, I don't understand why. Why data science?
నా వల్ల కాలేదు నా వల్ల కాలేదు
Like as if data science is the solution to everything. Oh my god, you can't believe how much of hype data science is being given. As if it's like, that's the most hyped thing this corona season after Ram Gopal Verma's climax, Patanjali's coronal, and then it is data science certification. Like for everything, data science is the answer. Why did the chicken cross the road? Because it wanted to attend the data science fair. Trust me. And people are coming up with all sorts of punchlines. Apparently, people don't believe in astrology. Life is not in sun signs and moon signs, it is in data science. And I don't know how they come up with these wonderful statements. All students who have completed a data scientist certification with us have got more than 400% hike in their salaries. Wow. But wait a minute, what was their initial salary? No, this is like how my comedy career started. When I told a good friend of mine that I wanted to take up full time comedy, he said, until you get at least 25% of your current salary from comedy, don't start doing it. When I told him my current salary, he said, just right now quit and start doing comedy because 25% of your current salary you could get even selling groundnuts near a theater. Normally, they suggest services and products which are relevant to you, right? I can't make out how data science is relevant to me. I mean, like, I have a basic engineering degree in mechanical engineering, then a master's in marketing, then I have worked in healthcare, after that in electronics, and then I have worked in mergers and acquisitions. My life is already a all mixed fruit juice faluda. I don't know how data science is going to help. And trust me, this is being propagated so much that probably sometime down the lane, if you go to a temple, the darshan will be based on free darshan, 50 rupees, VIP darshan, and data scientist. No wonder if very soon in Baswangudi they will throw out all those boards that we will rent the house only for vegetarians and non-bachelors. Two, we will only rent our houses to data scientists. And guess what? Corona. Corona doesn't see rich or poor. Corona doesn't see caste, religion, or anything. But probably if you are doing data science, because you are doing data science, and because of that, because you are home, so because of that, maybe you will not get corona. So corona actually sees whether you are a data scientist or not. हाँ बोलो ना क्या जाता है? So friends, if your life is not going on right, you have two options. You believe in astrology, go for one of those lucky stones. If you don't believe in astrology, then go for data science. ಲಕ್ಷ್ಮಿ ಅವರೇ, ರೆಕಾರ್ಡಿಂಗ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೀನಿ, ಮತ್ತೆ ಬರ್ತೀರಾ ಪ್ಲೀಸ್?
ಇಲ್ಲ ಸರ್, ಆಗಲ್ಲ.
ಆದ್ಮೇಲೆ ಕ್ಲೀನ್ ಮಾಡಿ.
ಅಯ್ಯೋ, ನಾನೇ ನಿಮ್ಮ ಥರ ಟಿಕ್ ಟಾಕ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೀನಾ? ಆದ್ಮೇಲೆ ನನಗೆ ಡೇಟಾ ಸೈನ್ಸ್ ಕ್ಲಾಸ್ ಇದೆ.
And people, up next in our second episode of Comedians on Zoom Getting Jalebi, this person has been my favorite for years for his style of talking and especially for the wit he has. You must check out his Facebook profile to understand what I am telling you. Any normal picture with his one comment becomes extremely hilarious. He is a man of several arts. He has been a wonderful speaker. He has been a great design thinker. And above all, he runs a very successful organization called Toss the Coin, which helps in digital marketing as well as corporate storytelling for many corporates. You must check out their work. And I need not tell you all this. I'll give you a simple example. The company he runs is called Toss the Coin. And the website they have, the web address is tossd .co.in. You get the it? Well, let's have more of it in conversation with the one and only Jayan Narayan.
Super. Okay. Good evening, Jen, and thank you so much for joining for the second episode of Comedians on Zoom Getting Jalebi.
Thank you. I am honored to be the second.
Second for the none or none before. I don't know the exact English of it, but yeah. Jen, super happy to have you because I have always admired the way you speak, to the instantaneous humor that you have on stage, to the wit that you have. In fact, I keep going through the photograph-based posts that you keep posting once in a while. I think nobody else does it the way you do it. So,
Oh, wow.
super happy to have you on the show. So quickly, I just wanted to ask you from a background perspective, how did humor creep into your life? So were you like really interested in humor during childhood, or it just happened? Just tell me about it.
Interesting question, because humor was not even in my gene or in my surrounding, to the extent that I don't even know the spelling of humor when I
Right.
was a child.
Right.
Because I was an introvert,
Mm-hmm.
extremely shy, and my linguistic proficiency was in negative.
Okay.
I grew up in a small township called Neyveli.
Uh-huh.
I don't know how many of them know that it's a thermal power station
Yeah.
for silent. So we all that we kids knew was school and home and home and school. School
Okay.
was a very strict school.
Right.
So I was an introvert kid. So there was absolutely no life around me. So so humor did not happen in my childhood. Definitely not.
Okay.
But the subtle humor happened when I was interacting with few of my very close friends whom I felt comfortable being with.
Right.
Where it happened. But the real humor happened. It's a long story. I don't know how much time you have, but I'm going to cut it short as much as possible.
No, go ahead. Please tell us.
Yeah, if at all you're going to edit it, knock off portion that you think is not interesting.
Sure.
Obviously, both of us knew each other through Toastmaster.
Right.
I joined Toastmasters in 2006, primarily because my spouse felt that I was fit for nothing when it comes to communication. And I was in a marketing job.
Yeah.
Can you imagine? So I was an utter failure in the initial part of my career. And that's when she said, you need Toastmasters. She happened to see Toastmasters somewhere in the US way back in 2002 or something. My mentor was Janaki Prasad Patnaik.
Okay.
Many people know him. He was a veteran then, 2006.
Right.
He's the one who started the first corporate club in Chennai in Covances, where we were working. So I took him as a mentor, and I repented for having selected him as a mentor. He was an absolute tormentor.
Right.
The toughest teacher anybody can have. I have the liberty to say that now. In those days, I was shivering in front of him.
Yes.
He was one who pushed me into humor because I was struggling to even pass through my project, CC1, CC2. I was struggling, and he said, you should try humor. And there was this humorous contest that was announced in the club.
Right.
He pushed me into that contest. I told him, I suck at humor. I cannot tell a joke properly.
Right.
My English is not all that great, and I can't do it. He said, no, if you're not going to try, you will not get it.
Mm-hmm.
I married a Tamilian. While I am a Malayali, I married a Tamilian. She's a vegetarian and I'm an anti-vegetarian.
Yes.
This wedding happened in Kerala, and it was an utter chaos because of the language issues and many things around it. Right. So I thought this is a right subject for me to talk as part of the humorous contest. Okay. And it was hilarious. The whole wedding was hilarious. And I thought I got a beautiful personal story. So I could just go and narrate it for the contest. Please. And people will love it. So the contest time came. I kind of put together a structure in my mind. I can't write a script.
Right.
I went and delivered this, and I thought I delivered one of the best humorous speech in the world by anybody.
Yeah. Yeah.
Interestingly, the audience didn't even giggle. See, look, the way you're laughing and
Right.
smiling, it felt nice if somebody felt pity and did that. They all were staring at me as if they've been asked to stare at me. Maybe I thought they were supporting my opponents
Right.
and they're not supporting me. That is why they're not laughing at my humor.
True.
And after the contest, I felt miserable because for a performer, if the audience reaction is not to his expectation, it will crumple him. And that is how I felt. And Janaki Prasad Patnaik, we call him JP. JP dragged me into his room in the office and blasted me left, right, and center. This is why I tell you preparation is important. This is why I tell you you need to follow the principles of delivering a humorous speech, the rule of three, then set up, pause, and blast, and all those things he told me. I said, I delivered what I could.
Right.
And I told, humor is not cut for me. I will never ever participate in a humorous speech contest.
Okay.
I can't do it.
Okay.
Do you know what happened after that? Till date, I'm holding on to that. I've never ever participated in a humorous speech contest.
Really?
But
Okay.
this is where humor started in my life.
Okay. Okay.
That night I didn't sleep. The next morning I woke up and said, how dare humor doesn't work for me? How dare people don't laugh for my wits and jokes? I will have to find this out, and I'm going to try it. And that day, I took an oath in front of the mirror. Jayan, in Toastmasters, hereafter, everything you do must have humor.
Right.
It could be a ISC speech, it could be an evaluation, it could be a grammarian report. You must force fit humor, otherwise you will never get it. And let us see if humor works for you or not. That is how humor started for me, and I have a long way to go compared to people like you.
Hey.
I have a long way to go. I learn from people like you, honestly.
But Jen, the thing is like, what I personally feel is there are many people who do humor. We have all those structure as well as stories and other things. But creating your own mark that, this is, I can understand it is so and so's humor is very difficult. And I think you have definitely created that, because many a time when we see your mentee speeches also, I can understand, okay, this must be Jayan's addition or Jayan's contribution. And why I ask this question is because particularly that picture which actually doesn't convey anything, with your comment becomes so much different. And that too particularly, it is definitely, cut away from the rest. So for example, Mother's Day, typical, everybody would put a mother's photograph and write rosy lines and all of it. But every Mother's Day, I wait like, okay, Jayan will definitely come up with something interesting. And every Mother's Day, there is one interesting picture which kind of puts, in a very different, interesting perspective. Like a woman is throwing a broom at a child, and it says, you can't expect if a mother aims for something, how long she can go or how far she can go in achieving success for you. So things like this. Is there some incident or some reason because of which you kind of force yourself to think different from the rest, or the tinge of sarcasm or whatever it is? How do you come up with these pictures and these thoughts of being a little different? And
Good. I appreciate that. I'm sure you're talking about the Facebook post that I put. That is a practicing session for me. I'm challenging myself. Humor is one aspect that you can't try for yourself and say it works or it doesn't work.
Right.
You need real audience to test out a humor. And if the humor works, you know that the audience have approved it.
Yes.
So that's the kind of a test that I do for myself on Facebook. I put it up there.
Right.
And wait for people to react. There are many times people have separately pinged me and said, no, I don't think it worked. And I pull it off.
Right.
I'm very cautious that I don't step on the other side of the line when it comes to religion, politics. gender, all
Right.
those things. I'm very cautious because I, maybe several years down the line, I want my children to look at it and laugh,
Yes.
not feel bad that my dad did something on a social media platform. I don't
Right.
want them to be embarrassed.
Hmm.
So sometimes, without my knowledge, I put up something, and people have warned me that it's not in good humor,
Yes.
and I apologize to them and I remove them, and I also thank them for pointing that. Many
Yeah.
people don't point that out. One thing I feel, I'm not studied in a school of humor.
Mhm.
I want seem like you, CK. CK
Ah.
is a guru. He's
Right.
from Bangalore. He's a guru in humor, right?
True.
And RSM, our great
Yes.
past
Yes. Yes.
master. So all these people are the ones I've watched, and I've kind of got inspired from by them, and I've taken up humor. But I strongly feel we have to stand out from the crowd. I'm
Mhm.
in marketing. This is
Right.
the language I speak to my customers. I tell them the market is so crowded.
Mhm.
If you don't do anything different,
Yeah.
people are not going to even recognize your presence.
Mhm.
What is that different is the question mark. It will turn out to be silly at times.
Mhm.
It will turn out to be weird at times. It will
Right.
turn out to be surprising at times.
Mm.
You need to be in for that challenge.
Right.
If you don't have the confidence that let me go and try, I don't care it being silly or weird or not acceptable, then you will
Right.
not step onto that platform and try something different.
Yeah.
I've got onto that idea. I in fact these days I take sessions on creativity,
Right. Right.
and I tell people that creativity is important in humor as well. I
Mhm.
think it's no brainer, everybody will accept. So the creativity comes first,
Right.
and then the humor comes next. So every time I come across an image, people keep asking me, where do you get these images here? It's
Ah.
Google.
Yes. Yes.
I'm not going after those. Sometimes when I'm browsing for something very serious for my work, I come across some funny pictures.
Pictures.
There are people these days who supply such material for me. Hey,
Yes.
for your next post, use these pictures.
True.
These don't happen overnight for me. I look at that picture, keep staring at it for a very long time, and then tell my brain,
Mm.
think something different.
Right.
What else can it represent?
Mm. Mm.
So I start characterizing those things in the picture. If there is a mother and a son, or there is a man and a buffalo, I start
Right.
characterizing them and I compare them with something else. Uh, if I were to give you an example, I came across this image where there were two monkeys,
Yep.
maybe a parent monkey and the child monkey
Right.
sitting by the side, and the parent monkey is holding a piece of paper.
Right.
Thought, hey, this is interesting. And suddenly, after many tries, I caught on to one concept.
Mm.
I suddenly remembered my mentor JP reviewing my script, and he has always trashed that script. Okay, I remembered that, and then I went and posted it and saying that moment when my mentor is reviewing my script, and that got quite a lot of interesting comments from fellow Toastmasters, and that's how I think it will happen. So creativity comes first, and when
Mm.
you are looking at that aspect, and everything that follows is what you should embrace and put in place, and then tweak, do some wordsmithing. So I try and make it as short as possible, not elaborate it, write a story and spoil it,
Right.
because sometimes we as people on the stage underestimate the audience, thinking that probably they won't understand my humor,
Yes.
probably they won't understand my point of view, and we go on to explain that.
Right.
That is where you will ruin that humor.
True.
You will have to presume that the audience is more intelligent than you,
Yes. Yes.
and only then you will concise your content in a cryptic form and give it off to them.
Right.
That will kindle a whole lot of funny thoughts in the minds of people. In fact, it will glorify your humor. That's
Yes.
what I have learned. So that's
Definitely.
one.
Definitely. In fact, I personally have instances where I did that. The sin of going ahead and explaining the joke, and there was a response from the audience saying it's not that we did not understand the joke; it's that the joke is naturally bad. So that's the reason why we didn't laugh. So, but
Happens. It has happened to me many times, and I learned out of experience.
right.
Yeah.
But it's a very valid point, Jen, that I keep telling even in the humorous sessions that I do. that it doesn't happen overnight. It takes a long time for us to come up with a meme or a comment which is funny as such, because many people look for that formula by which a normal statement becomes funny. But
Correct.
normally it doesn't happen that way. But very interesting. You talked about how creativity and humor are correlated and other things. What I have seen, especially in you, is the kind of storytelling or the style of storytelling you do. And I remember from one of our conversations something very powerful that you told me, and has kind of changed my perceptions about speech making. Is that, like, who doesn't have a story? Everybody has a story. It's how you tell the story that makes a difference. Can you just elaborate about how you go about this different styles of storytelling? And one interesting point is you also have the knowledge of devising. Like I remember Hema's speech where she uses one object as multiple objects in the speech, and that's absolutely beautiful. So some of these techniques and things, if you could share, it would be lovely.
Yeah, I can't sit down and write a humorous script. For me, humor comes from the natural surrounding. I have to see something and then look at it from a humor point of view.
Right.
Karthik Mohandas, who was the champion at District 82, we have worked together for his speech. And these days, whenever we take sessions or he takes sessions, he says, he wears a cooler for a session. He says, humor is nothing different. Only thing is the glasses that you wear.
Right.
That makes the difference. What you see. For a typical example is during this COVID pandemic, everybody is worried, things are not great, and all of us understand. But there are certain people who look at it from a completely different point of view. They say, hey, that's life, let's take it, and they remain positive. And the way they look at it, there's a whole lot of humor on the sidelines that we keep coming across on social media, the memes and a whole lot of other things, right? So that is the difference. So I think humor is all around us. It all depends on how you view it. I'll give you an example, a recent example. I was invited by a corporate to address some 200 odd employees, and it was on Skype for business. I've never used Skype in a long time, and I'm so used to Zoom these days. Forget the fact that it is Japanese or Chinese or whatever it is, but it works. And I'm sure we are recording on Zoom right now. So So they told me, no, it's a corporate. We only believe in Skype for whatever reason. And they said, you need to come and present. And they gave me a whole lot of instructions. Okay. I had a PPT. I hardly use PowerPoint for any of my sessions. That day I thought I'll use PowerPoint because they said video is not going to be on for anybody.
Right.
So even a presenter will not have the video on.
Okay.
So I said, then I don't want to stare at a blank screen. I don't want people to stare at a blank screen. I thought I'll put some PPT and put it across. So this thing started, I shared my PPT, everything was going fine. Something interesting about Skype is you don't know the names of the people who have logged in. It only shows initials.
Initials, yes.
SP, BR, KR, J, and all that will come at the bottom. So you don't know who's who there, but the count was some 230 or something like that. Halfway through, I got thrown out of Skype. I didn't touch my laptop. My PPT is there. I'm talking. Suddenly it got thrown out. The best part is I didn't know I got thrown out. So I continued to speak with all the energy and I'm making a point. And almost 75% into my speech. I have 25% where my overall message tucked in the last slide, right? And there's no response there. Obviously, all of them were on mute, but at least one or two will say yes or no response. And I get a call from the guy who was hosting the meeting. I was like wondering who the hell is calling. And I say, hey, why is this guy calling? So I frantically look for the mute and then mute, it doesn't work. And I pick up the call and say, Jain, you got dropped. I said, no, I'm very much there. No, you got dropped. Oh, is it? No, how do I come back? He said, no, log out and come back again. And I log out and it says, sorry, the organizer is refusing to let you in.
Oh, okay.
You're not allowing me in. No, I'm not doing anything. Both of us are talking like this. Okay. And he said, I don't know what to do. I try again. I'm not getting in. And he said, there might be a technical glitch. I'm sorry. And he cut the call. So he didn't tell me what to do. I kept trying, some 3-4 trying. I went in.
Okay.
And this is what I hear, right? The guy is announcing, sorry, there is a technical glitch. Jain was not able to connect back. And people are saying, oh no, it's such a sad thing. His session was really good. It was going really well. And many people are giving comments. And I'm there inside live. I'm telling, hey guys, I'm there. Nobody's listening. They couldn't identify me. So it felt like they were all talking at my funeral. It suddenly felt like people have come there for my funeral talking nice things about me. And I said, hey guys, I'm here. This is Jayan. I started yelling and somebody luckily heard me. Hey, they all shouted, hey Jay, the speaker is here. Come back. By then, half the crowd had left. Then they had to frantically call them and they log in. I continue my session. And then I said, it's so funny, right? At the beginning of the session, I told them, guys, I'm very new to Skype. Zoom is almost like my girlfriend. We have very good understanding. Now on Skype, I feel guilty.
Right.
Now that's exactly what happened. And when I went back, I told them that it felt like I was in a funeral where you guys were talking about me. They all had a laugh and we continued that.
Yes.
Now, had I been so tensed,
Right.
and then, oh, so sorry, it got cut. And then I go on to explain why it didn't happen and why it was not my mistake. And it was a mistake on their side. All that would have further, demotivated them or made it a little bad. But I converted that bad situation into a humorous situation. And everybody had a good laugh. And we almost forgot that I was thrown out in the last 10 minutes and we continued. Now that story was there happening right in front of me. So there are two ways of looking at it. Either take it very seriously and then tell them, guys, I told you I'm not happy with Skype. Why the hell did you do this? Many speakers may do that, right? They get annoyed at their flow of thought being disrupted and things like that. Or the second way of looking at it is, laugh at it. And there is a humor that was born right there. Interestingly, my topic these days is creativity.
Right.
And the last part of witty is actually WITTY.
Okay.
I was talking to them about how to be creative and witty.
Okay.
So this incident helped me emphasize the witty part of my session.
Right.
Suddenly I got content for my session, which I was not prepared.
True.
So that is why I think it is everywhere, right? I'm sure we will find some content right now.
Yes.
Which can be a little funny. In fact, when we started, I was looking at the doll at the back and was imagining some stories about the doll and your life. It pretty much explains to me what is life for you at home.
Right.
You're simply hanging there like that doll, speechless, doing nothing. I'm sorry, but
this is my safe space. I don't go out.
And I'm worried about that scarf or something there because is it an indication when you feel suicidal?
No. It's just to convince that if my wife says, you don't spend enough time with me, I say like, this is your chunni or whatever. So I always have your presence.
Oh, have her presence there, right? Okay, now I know. Now it's clear. That frame is very clear.
Yeah. So I'm very bad with designing the look. So I tried something and my wife said it looks like half prepared baby shower, arrangement or what. So, okay, whatever.
But let me tell you now, today for me, you look like Shah Jahan.
Shah Jahan. Oh, this.
The whole setup. The doll alone is a misfit there, but otherwise,
yes.
That's the feeling I get.
Good one. Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
I don't wish to build the Taj Mahal. But,
I think let us not deviate.
Right. So, the thing is, I wanted to ask you, Jain, like all this lovely humor, how does it, help us in our personal lives as well? So I understand. I mean, we both are in the very same situation. You are a Mallu married to a Tamil person. I am a Telugite married to a Kannada girl. And you live in Chennai, which is like you are in the mother-in-law's house. I live in Bangalore, which is same like being in the mother-in-law's house. So I'm sure like humor also helps in personal life, and so would you want to tell us something interesting about this? And I guess you both are from BITS as well, right?
Correct. Yeah, yeah.
Yes, yes.
So
yes.
that's
So
right.
I'm sure there's a interesting story there. So
Oh yeah, quite a lot of interesting story. In fact, in my community that I live,
right.
there is a community radio that we run. It's an
Oh.
online cast like this, and they interview people. Only this morning they interviewed me about my life in Bits Pilani and how I found the girl there and eventually got married and things like that.
Okay.
I shamelessly gave away that interview, and my wife was really mad at me. How could you share so much personal story to the external world? I said, if I run out of stories, then I will have to dig into my past and then bring them to the audience. In fact, most of my sessions involves around the fact how I met her in college and things like that.
Right.
So your question was, how does humor work in your personal life?
I mean, did humor help, first of all, in terms of, finding somebody and things like that? And post that, at least in retention process, is it helping?
Not, yeah, I think I'll have to split this into two parts. I told you I was an introvert, shy guy.
Right.
My linguistic efficiency was very bad. And there's no way anybody can even get attracted to a character like this.
Right.
I stopped talking when I went to BITS because I was shocked at the way people were speaking English.
Right.
So I went into a shell. In fact, interact in sign language. My friends asked me, Machan, shall we go for breakfast? This is how I shake my hand. And she happened to be my classmate.
Okay.
She actually thought I was dumb.
Oh, okay.
So she used to quietly walk with me when I'm going alone somewhere. Then that is how our friendship started.
Okay. Nice.
And during one of the breaks, she's the one who proposed to me, and she asked me, "Will you marry me?" I thought this was the biggest dream or nightmare that can happen to anybody. I didn't even believe that it is real, meaning she's asking for real.
Right.
So I jumped out and said yes, because such kind of guys, they won't even believe that this can happen. And if something happens, you need to grab that opportunity. And that's the day I realized that I'm cut out for marketing.
Okay.
So that is how it started. So the humor had no role. Much later, right? 2006 is when I told you it really started. But in terms of retention, I don't know. You're now talking HR language, employee retention. It's not a policy that I've defined. In a way, it is only counterproductive.
Right.
Yeah. Meaning we go out and then meet some people, I crack some jokes, and there are some women who laugh at my jokes. She doesn't like that.
Oh, okay.
This is what you're trying at this age. You need this. It doesn't even strike my head.
Right.
But you can imagine what happens on the way back home, and then after you come back home. So the intensity of fight that happens after that is directly proportional to the laughter that was there for my joke.
Right.
You understand?
Yes.
So I'm very clear where to crack jokes and where not to crack jokes.
So on the
this kind of so retention is kind of difficult. It becomes really serious.
Right.
I'm still joking, but she's been the biggest critic of my humor. She's quite humorous herself, but hers is a different kind of humor. But she's been my biggest critic. If she watches something that I've done, or my Facebook post, I run it past her, and she has to approve before I post, because she's too good in language. So she corrects me in certain places, and then she helps me. That way, it really helps. But the most important aspect is, I always tell people that there are two aspects to humor. There is sense of humor and humor sense. I coined it. Sense of humor is born with you. Humor sense is you inculcate and cultivate over time.
Okay.
Both these people can crack jokes.
Right.
Some people naturally, they have that sense of humor. I have a friend called Krishnan. We call him Keech. He's in the US. The guy opens his mouth And until the time he closes his mouth, we all around him will keep laughing.
Okay.
His imagination and creativity is unbelievable.
Right.
And that I call it as sense of humor, because he's born with that. Humor sense is something that we can cultivate over time. And then we know that we exactly know where to give the pause, punch, all of those. And some speakers in Toastmasters is like that. I kind of really, meaning I figure out these two characteristics in a person.
Mm.
You have sense of humor.
Right.
There are some people who are very serious.
Mm.
They just can't crack jokes.
Yes.
But they will come and deliver one of the best humorous speeches.
Right.
But once they get on from the stage, they're again serious.
Yeah.
That means they've developed that humor sense. They exactly know how to construct a humorous speech, how to deliver it. And they also know the pulse of the audience.
Right.
And once you have a good mix of both,
Yes.
you're a brilliant comedian.
Right.
I see this in Alexander Babu.
Right.
Alex in Wonderland, he was a Toastmaster himself, and today he's one of the most brilliant stand-up comedians and showman. So he has both. He has this innate, sense of humor, and the humor sense he has developed, and he's able to mix that together. And he clearly predicts the way audience would react to each of his lines.
Mm-hmm.
So that's brilliant. So that way. Coming back to your question, in terms of retention, yes, it definitely helps. Humor, I'm sure it's a no-brainer again. Humor can bond people like anything else. It can bring enemies together. That's what I strongly feel.
So
I'm sure it must be working for you also, right?
Retention? Yeah, that's the only reason retention is happening. Otherwise, quit the job for doing something full time. No girl will appreciate.
Right.
So, and one very interesting thing I have found in you, Jayan, is that I haven't seen somebody so explicitly talking about failures than successes. Unlike in the regular Toastmasters environment, because most of the Toastmasters fraternity talks a lot about success, like how they achieved, etc. But whether it's your LinkedIn page, like until the last line, it talks about the failures, and in the last line, you just say like I have changed, and it's absolutely brilliant. So, would you want to share about how your perspective about failures has helped you kind of move on and achieve something big? Because definitely I see Toss the Coin is doing amazing job. From the way you build content to the kind of clients you work with, it's absolutely brilliant. So your take on this?
Yeah, because I'm a man of failures. My LinkedIn summary talks about my failure. My description talks about my failure. I've written there because every time I go to LinkedIn, I get thoroughly demotivated because I only see successful people.
Right.
You look at every profile, you open their profile and read their description. A successful sales guy for the last 20 years who turned around millions of business for organizations.
Yes.
So a successful techie, everybody is successful, HR professional being successful. I was just wondering, then where are the guys who have failed? Am I the only one who's failed? I'm sure these guys would have failed as well. And why is that people are not coming forward to talk about their failures? So the humanness is lost. You have to be bold enough to call a spade. And then that shows how successful you are. That's my perspective. I might be wrong. And I have a different avatar on Facebook and LinkedIn. On LinkedIn, I'm very serious. My thoughts and all of those are very serious. I don't bring humor there. Facebook is my humor laboratory, and I do all my humor experiments there. I've just kept it separately, and we all have that avatar in us. We have a serious side and a humor side, right? And I thought I will use it like that. And that is why I'm very particular about writing on LinkedIn about some serious things in life. I recently wrote about my son. I wrote about my mother. and
Right.
I wrote about my wife as well. And I usually don't do that, but I thought, I should try different kinds of narratives.
Right.
When we accept failure
Mm-hmm.
and we openly accept failure, that is when we will have the courage to accept success.
Right.
I I kind of feel that I've had my quota of failure right from the time I was born.
Mm-hmm.
I was the shortest in the class.
Okay.
And that is one reason why I became an introvert, shy. This self-esteem was very low, and I never used to like myself.
Mm-hmm.
I've shared this with many people in the forums that I've spoken, uh, because my principal was a very strict man. He used to punish us with a cane if we make noise in the class,
Right.
and he used to make us stand in a line, and then he'll start hitting everybody.
Right.
And I'm the first guy in that line.
Yes.
All the anger
Yes. Yes.
will be on me. And I was the quietest kid in the class.
Mm.
You can imagine the psychology of that kid. The kid
Right.
feels very bad for no reason. I'm being punished.
Right.
And I remember many times I've gone to my dad and cried, "Why did you give birth to me like this?"
Mm.
Until once, one of the doctors that my dad took me
Right.
to make me glow. Many doctors prescribed vitamin C tablets for me and then said 3 months magic will happen. No magic happened. But
Right.
one doctor, he's from Kolkata, he's an orthopedician. He was shocked.
Okay.
And he was the only guy who invited me into the chamber with a wide smile. The rest of the doctors were frowning.
I know.
And that guy gave me one magic formula. He said, every day morning when you look at the mirror, you look at the mirror and say, "I love you."
Okay.
I said, "This is my crazy guy." What does he mean by this? And I narrate this story in many of my speeches. And then the next day I went and tried. I felt weird. And I kept trying.
Mm-hmm.
Slowly, my self esteem started building up. My confidence level started building up. I stopped looking at my height as a deterrent
Right.
to leading my life. I started accepting myself. And after that, I started loving myself. The
Right.
love didn't happen immediately. I
Yes.
was crossing one hurdle after another. And then finally, there was a deja vu moment where I started loving myself.
Mm-hmm.
And when you start loving yourself, you start accepting your failures.
Right.
You don't blame it on fate. You don't find another reason to blame on. You kind of tell that is what life is. Everybody fails. Every successful man today or woman today have their quota of failure. Maybe they're not talking about it right now. That's their choice. Not necessarily that you should talk. But over time, I felt when I started speaking, I felt that I must acknowledge my failures,
Right.
so that it kind of gives me that confidence. Yes, now you are prepared to talk about your successes.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, what happens is when I talk about my success, I kind of feel guilty
Right.
that as if I'm hiding something from people.
Yes.
When I let it out, I have a sense of relief. And
Right.
that is why I ended up talking about failures. And also over time, I found out people want to listen to genuine stories.
Mm.
When I say genuine stories, there must be a quota of failure. It can't be bed of roses from the beginning till the end, right? The
Right.
thorns appear somewhere in between. So we should not hide those. And when you share that, people immediately have a sense of connect.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. I can remember my failure. And the
Right.
guy is so quickly talking about failure, even I can open up. And I feel that if I can impact one person,
Mm-hmm.
my job is done. We can't please everybody, but one person thinks I should open up. I should open up about my failures, and that can bring some relief to me. So I think the job is done for me, and that is how I started off talking about failures. And I'm trying to make sure that I don't talk too much about failures and then become a failure eventually. But I want to strike a balance. But I think I will be able to.
Yeah, but that does definitely help a lot of people that in spite of all of this, good things can happen, and you can succeed well in life when they look at the failures side of you as well as what you're achieving today. Then so definitely that stands as an inspiration to many people. I would definitely say
I
because
hope so.
yeah, yeah. I keep referring your organization to a lot of friends as well about one line that kind of makes a difference from rest of the people in business and your business is that irrespective of whether somebody has the budget, has the resources or whatever it is, you can always drop us a call and just talk to us. We just love to talk to you. That line makes a huge difference between somebody who is really interested in a customer and who says that we have the best resources or whatever. So that was very, very heartwarming for me. And I think that is something that has even helped you in terms of trying different things. I think you are encouraging your son Abhinay to pursue his interest in music and things like that. So from that perspective, I see a lot of people forcing kids into regular monotonous food, which I think they have their own genuine reasons as well. But still, would you want to tell something about this? Because he's definitely shaping up real good. I have seen some of his videos, and especially the one on the occasion where you said you were missing your dad and the song, the Malayalam song, and things like that. So please do tell us about that.
That is another interesting aspect of our life. I wrote about his story on LinkedIn recently. Many kids are being brought up as doctors and engineers.
Right.
You and I have been a victim of such likings of our parents and our relatives, right? These are the only two options we have. And I myself am a victim of that desire of my father that I should become an engineer, the first engineer in my life. And I was beaten to death to prepare for that. And I landed in bits. I keep claiming that that's never been my ambition. But of course, it has done wonders for me. I'm not saying it set me up for failure or things like that. I don't want to give that message. But there are certain people who are cut out for certain things. My son was not academically inclined that much.
Okay.
We failed to understand that. Like any other parent, we were pushing him. He hates chemistry. I hate chemistry.
Okay.
Realize that genes really work. They pass on to the next generation, right?
Okay.
And he hates chemistry. I was internally very glad that he told me that he hates chemistry. But like a dad, any other dad, I was telling, no, chemistry is important, blah, blah, blah. He literally made his life miserable, putting him through personalized tuitions, taking him to a counselor. And the guy reluctantly went and joined engineering. His love for music has been there for long, but we thought it is a hobby. He can always play keyboard and sing and then be happy about it. But the mainstream life is to be an engineer. Of course, doctor is a distant dream. So we knocked that off. Then his second love was cars. He loves driving. He loves automobiles. So we put him in an automobile engineering. So that half his liking, half our liking, put together automobile engineering. He was also kind of happy, but he was not all that happy. He kept telling us, I want to pursue music. I want to get into the industry. I want to do music all through my life and things like that. We thought he's a kid. He doesn't know what life is.
Right.
On the other hand, my wife and I used to be invited by many universities to go and talk. So we used to go to universities. And when we go to universities, do you know what the topic of our talk is? Follow your passion.
Yes.
So we are going and telling those kids, hey, follow your passion. As long as that passion can bring you money and make a livelihood for you, you should chase your passion. And at home, we come and beat the hell out of this guy to go and pursue engineering. And I used to tell my wife, there is something wrong. We are not practicing what we are preaching.
Right.
So we must do something about it. And then this guy in engineering, he's cribbing. The whole year he kept telling that the college has not even showed me a car. Forget the engine of the car. They've not even shown me a car and I'm pursuing automobile engineering. Right. Why would I learn biology and chemistry for automobile engineering, which I hate? So valid question. So we decided we must do something about it. We have seen the world enough. So we should help him and we can't suppress him. Right. He was also getting depressed. He was not all that active. Then after the first year, his birthday was on May 5th. On his birthday, we handed over an envelope to him. Okay. He was wondering, why am I not getting my regular Reebok shoes and watch and all that? These guys are giving me an envelope. He opened the envelope and it was a TC from the college.
Oh.
So I had silently gone, asked them to give me a TC. And interestingly, his first year got over. So I got the TC on my hand, and that was the gift that we gave him. And till date, he says that is one of the best gifts he has ever received in his life. It was on his 19th birthday. And he wrote a song out of that also. He posted it on YouTube, and then, yeah, I don't know whether it is still there. Then he went on to look for colleges which offer the kind of music production related course. And then we gave him a free hand. Go ahead and find it, because that's not our forte. We don't even know. You ask me an engineering college, I can recommend. Now a music college, I have no idea. Right. So both of us told him, you take care of what we want to do, but we will support you. We will wholeheartedly support you. We have no idea what the future is for you. We don't even know whether you'll be able to make money out of it.
Right.
But we're confident that you will excel in this field. That kind of confidence we have. Let us see. Because none of us know what the future has in store. Even I didn't know after BITS I'll be doing this. I never knew that I'll be talking to a great comedian one day. And here I am talking to you. I can't believe that. So that's what life is all about, right? And then later he did his research and found a university, quite expensive, a university in UK to pursue music technology.
Right.
And then he went and joined there. This pandemic last month, he graduated from there.
Wow.
And he had kind of identified an internship there, but due to this pandemic, he lost that. Again, another round of depression. But we are now encouraging him to make videos and learn new tools while at home. And that is how he launched a new music video. His mother helped him with his lyrics. And then he composed that music and sang. And I was the cameraman, nothing, holding the Android phone. Not even holding, keeping it on a ladder.
Yes.
And that is how we ended up making that music video. But glad that people loved it. And so he's also happy that, okay, it's happening. So he's yet to make money, but I think that's immaterial, right? That'll come later.
Yes. But really a great story of, positive possibilities that you shared, Jen, because I think this is a kind of dilemma in which many parents are there. But I think, yeah, this is definitely very inspiring. So finally, Jen, I just wanted to ask, is there one suggestion or, a set of practices that you would suggest for people who are interested in humor, either Toastmasters, non-Toastmasters, about, because I'm sure you have a great taste in comedy. You have seen people like, Alexander Babu, as well as Raj Shekhar and many other who have prolifered as comedians. So is there something that you want to suggest to youngsters who want to pursue comedy?
Comedy has to be next to oxygen for all of us.
Right.
It has to be. You need to consider that as a health ingredient. If you're used to taking Horlicks and Boost, then comedy must be another drink that you should have.
Yes.
Comedy indirectly helps in many ways. Why you don't use comedy is because you're not confident that it will work.
Mm-hmm.
Then you become a person with lack of confidence.
Right.
So it's a good way to improve your confidence.
Mm-hmm.
If you're bold enough to go and try comedy, it means you're a confident person. So you can evaluate yourself like that. So it builds your confidence. Forget it building your humor, but it can build your confidence. So there's nothing wrong in trying humor. There are no side effects.
Right.
There are only good side effects, and which is good. You will tend to be very creative.
Mm-hmm.
Creativity is important for us to survive going ahead.
Yes.
I keep telling people this. And creativity is there in all of us. We all are creative. Just that, again, that lack of confidence. Oh, no, I'm not creative. Imagine I can take a piece of paper and draw your face right now.
Yes.
You will claim, no, that doesn't look like me.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't mean that I'm not creative.
Right.
I shouldn't look at it and say, hey, I've drawn Kishore. No. Yes. I should look at it and say, I've drawn a man.
Mm-hmm.
Suddenly I'm creative.
Right.
When you start validating yourself, you doubt your creativity. That's
Right.
exactly what is there in humor as well. You will start validating, meaning you try humor thrice, it
Okay.
fails, and then you write yourself off.
Mm-hmm.
Please continue to try, continue to fail. Only then you will come up, and the humor sense will start building in you.
Right.
You might not have the sense of humor, but the humor sense can always be inculcated. But you will have to look at things in a completely different way.
Yes. Yes.
And you will have to find your sweet spot.
Right.
For me, my sweet spot was self deprecating humor.
Right.
I make fun of myself right at the beginning of any speech, and people feel comfortable.
Mm.
There's one standard line that I pass is I go on stage and I ask people, am I audible?
Mm.
That's a standard question any speaker will ask, and everybody will shake their head. Then I ask people at the end, am I audible? And they all shake their head. And I tell them, you know what, this is the biggest worry for any speaker, right? When they climb on stage, this is the worry. But for me, this is least of my worries. Am I visible? So I put a pause there.
Right.
And then everybody thinks, okay, least of your worries. Why?
Mhm.
Is the question that's going. And then I ask them, am I visible?
Yes.
Now a tall guy cannot go and say this.
It is right.
So am I not gifted?
Definitely.
So that is how you look at you, right? You have
Right.
something that you can make fun of, and
Mm.
you're not offending anybody. Maybe my mom will get offended, but she's not in the audience. But
Yes.
otherwise, there's nobody getting offended, right? And
Right.
this is something that anybody can say, right? I have not learned it in any college, or I've not got it myself. But
Mm.
how do I make fun of certain elements of myself under self-deprecating humor is what I should look at.
Right.
So that is one aspect. For me, another thing that seemed to work is spontaneity.
Right.
If you say something, I can immediately retort back with a humor.
Yes.
So I felt that I could do that. And so I stick to only these two. I don't venture into certain other types of comedy. There are so many types of humor, right?
Yes.
Slapstick and sarcastic and all that. Sarcasm, yes,
No.
that's because of the timur I have sometimes. I get sarcasm, but these are things that come to you. So we all need to find out what our sweet
Yes.
spot is.
Right.
You need to watch as much humor as possible. So your mind unconsciously or subconsciously, unconscious is a pathetic word, subconsciously
Right.
will tell you, hey, develop that characteristics.
Mm-hmm.
I watch Alexander Babu, I watch CK, I watch yours. All of you have a different style of humor, right? Savin Hegde, for example. I tell myself, man, his humor is sophisticated.
Yes.
Right? RSM is very simplified.
Yes.
Right? Your Masala Dream speech is still word by word on my head because that's my Bible. I've like immensely enjoyed your speech because that is where I learned delivery plays a massive role. So delivery also is something that you can focus on, and that is where you get shameless.
Yes.
If you have to mention that I was running,
Right.
and you have to show as if you're running, that adds to the humor. But some of us have that inhibition. How do I run on stage?
Right.
Alexander Babu's Alex in Wonderland, there is one place where he literally runs across the stage.
Right.
And that adds some amazing humor. In your case, the way you're getting onto the bike with that beautiful girl at the back, all those extra effort to put that delivery on added to the humor. That is where exaggeration plays a heavy role. But there are some people who don't have to do any of this and yet make people laugh. And a typical example would be Sridhar Ranganathan.
Right.
In one of his humorous speeches, he doesn't do any of these drama, if I may have to,
Yes,
he
sir.
may call it so. But he's like very subtle, but he just gives the dialogue and we all laugh. So there are different types. Maybe that running around on the stage is not his forte.
Right.
And he feels, I don't have to do that to make people laugh.
Yes.
Yeah. And even I can't do that, but I somehow want to do that. I want to come out of that shell and do that humor, be more animated with humor. So finding the sweet spot is important. If you have never tried humor in your life, it's not worthy enough to be living.
Right.
for Toastmasters also, I'm just saying,
Yes.
next time you climb on stage, you're a grammarian, please see where you can bring humor.
Humor. Right.
You will fail, but people will remember the fact that you tried humor. And that is what I've been doing time and again. And somewhere I found some sweet spot. I found certain things that works, and I found certain things that don't work, and I don't step on that.
Yes.
So if you can just work with inside the box of your creativity and wittiness, I'm sure it will certainly work. Read as much as you can about humor. CK has a tons of blogs which are brilliant.
Yes.
I often ask people to go and read that. Read from others' experience, and you will definitely get it. But humor doesn't work without rhyme.
Right.
Maybe it's a very silly advice, but that's what it is. If you don't try, it doesn't work.
It doesn't work.
And you have to be courageous enough.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure many times even you failed by trying out some
Definitely.
humor.
Yeah.
Like, if you're not courageous enough, I'm sure you wouldn't have tried that. It won't work. And never validate even before trying, saying that it will not work.
Right. Very true.
Yeah. Because sometimes in the audience, you will find people who are very kind.
Yes.
Yeah, they will laugh just for your sake. Poor guy, he tried. So let me at least.
Super. Thank you so much, Jen. Lovely advice. All your speeches normally end with you asking people to draw the pig, and based on that some analysis. Our discussion ends with you talking about drawing my picture, so I can kind of relate why you mentioned that. And coming to spontaneity, I must tell you this one incident where I saw you being very subtly spontaneous, but that kind of like, even now, whenever I remember it, I laugh so much. So I think this was 2014 Ovation that happened in Infosys, and you were the conference chair or the co-conference chair. And Sasta, I think, was talking about how difficult it was to put together the whole event. There was no money, and overnight, this person sponsored some 3 lakhs or 4 lakhs. And as she comes walking on the stage, all you did was just this and go towards her, and from the point on the stage till the place where she came, you kept doing this every time she looked at you. And it was like so evident, like, that help was so much needed, and she felt appreciated, but at the same time, everyone were laughing like crazy. I think these are some really good instances that show the spontaneity. So thank you so much, Jen. It was lovely talking to you, a very candid conversation that I have had. And I'm sure that the humor sense and sense of humor is the second best advice I have received from you. The first one being never order chicken biryani, order biryani rice and different chicken items so that you can enjoy your lunch. So
absolutely, but biryani has to be there, like Praveen Kumar said.
Yeah. Now Praveen is in Chennai also, so I'm sure.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, he just moved to Chennai. So thank you so much. It was lovely talking to you.
Thank you, and wish you all the best with Jalebi. Yeah. I don't know whether this episode of Jalebi was even a jalebi in shape, but I'm sure it would have been a little bit tasty enough so that people can consume and digest. Definitely. But good luck to you for the future episodes.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Jen. Thanks.
Thank you.